Hi, this is Nicole Rivera, and you're listening to the Stop Writing Alone podcast. Last Friday, the day after the last episode aired, I was on the road. Actually, the day the last episode aired, I was already on the road. My family and I we're away with family, and we took a road trip to get here. And with the Happy Campers schedule in full swing, the spring session of the Stop Writing Alone Happy Campers Club goes on through March and April. I had some meetings that were going on even though I've been away and even though I was on the road. We have meetings Monday through Friday every week in March and April. And while we did make arrangements for the Thursday night meeting to sort of be handled in a different way last week, the Friday evening meeting, which is the writing prompt party, I said, I think I can do it from the road. I'm going to try to hop in on Zoom and see how it goes. And it was really interesting to me because I don't know about you, but in my life, I've always been that person. I love to read. I love to read. I love to write, clearly. These are two things that I often love to do on vacation, even back long before I identified as a writer per se in any sort of professional manner. Even when I was a kid, every single time I went on vacation, one of the first things on my mind was, what books am I going to pack to read? What notebook am I going to pack to write in? Will I pack my laptop when that became a thing? All of my writing and reading materials were like top of the list on what should be packed. However, having said all that, reading and writing in the car has always been like a huge no-no for me. Reading would lead very quickly to a headache of any sort. Even if I had to read directions to something, I would usually have to stop and I'd not be okay with it. And writing, I think when I was younger, like much younger, like middle school age, I did some writing in the car because we used to do road trips from New York to Florida to go to Disney World, or my grandparents lived in Florida. They were what we call snowbirds. They would go down during the winter. And I remember writing in a notebook then. I had like a diary of some sort where I was keeping track of all the license plates I saw, but also trying to keep track of, what was going on the trip. But I couldn't sustain it too long. But that's like the last time I remember ever writing in the car, until last Friday. Because what happened on Friday was, like I said, I decided to hold the Zoom call from my phone on the car ride and have a writing prompt party where we had a prompt, and luckily one of the other happy campers shared a prompt. So because my phone was not allowing me to do all the things. And I opened up my notebook and I was able to write a story. No headaches, no problems. Just have fun with writing story while we were traveling from North Carolina to South Carolina. It was quite amazing. And it was fun. It was so much fun to write a story, read my story aloud, hear the stories of everybody else that wrote, and I had it on the speaker so that it would also entertain my husband, the driver for the trip, for a little bit. But it also just got me thinking about this idea of location when we write and changing up our location when we write. I've discussed this before. I know, especially when we were in the pandemic, on lockdown, in ways that we couldn't readily change our location for anything, writing or otherwise. This was very much on my mind, but not something that we could take advantage of. And so when I had this experience last Friday, I thought, oh my goodness, it's happening. I'm writing in different spaces. And of course, I've been writing since I've been here. down in Florida with the family. And what happens is that it does add to my writing. There is something other that comes to the page. And sometimes it's something other that may need to be edited out later, but oftentimes it is something that just elevates the writing. We talk about so many different influences that we use, whether it's our music that we listen to while we're writing, or what tools we use, what kind of pen do you use, what kind of notebook do you use, what program are you writing in. But the actual location of ourselves when we are getting writing done is a factor that needs to be considered. I just read an article about it was about two creative heroes of mine, Julia Cameron and Natalie Goldberg. And I was seeking an article, and I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but since I've been in the Natalie Goldberg Writing Down the Bones class, I got to thinking again, as I do, about the connection between Natalie Goldberg and Julia Cameron, because there seem to be so many similarities between their two philosophies of writing, and what could it be, and are they friends? These are the big questions that I always have. I'm like, what's going on? And so I finally found an article that sort of connected the dots. And the dots get connected by location, that they both found inspiration in the state of New Mexico. And I'm like, oh, this is so freaking fascinating, because once again, it comes back to location. So if you, like me, have found yourself over the last, let's face it, 2 years now, writing in the same space, now is a time to start looking around and finding someplace else to relocate to. And I'm not saying that none of your writing should happen in your same space. Look, I'm going to go home after this trip and probably end up writing back in my office again, on my bed again, in my room. But I am going to now be looking back at all of the places and spaces around me, around my home, that are now open and available to me to write, because I've had this experience once again, and it was almost like I forgot about it, of writing outside that space, and it's wonderful. It really is great. For me, it's not just writing outside that space that changed this week. It was just like a brand new writing space, writing in the car while it's moving on a road trip. I didn't even think I was going to have the bandwidth to show up for fiction, being so tired from traveling and everything. And there I was able to show up and write a story. And it was a good time had by all. So if particularly for all of my listeners that are here in the Northern Hemisphere, where spring is upon us, and I know almost everybody that I speak to has been having a wacky, inconsistent sort of weather pattern going on right now. But in general, we're moving in the direction of nicer weather where we can actually get outside. This is the time to really say, where can I write? Because even if you aren't feeling fully comfortable with going to a cafe or some indoor space right now for an extended period of time, I think we're getting closer to the time where you can do some outdoor writing. And, and like I said, I'm sure you've already had days where you can do that. So keep it in mind and make it a priority, because the location, your writing location, is huge. And one tip that Natalie Goldberg has been saying to us over and over again over the weeks is call a friend. And this fits in gorgeously with our Stop Writing Alone philosophy here. call a writing friend and say, meet me tomorrow or whatever day you set at whatever time. Meet me tomorrow at noon in the park, at that bench that we love to sit on to write, and I'll see you there. And what Natalie does, which I think is really interesting, is she'll leave a message for a friend like that. She says she absolutely loves it when they don't answer, and she could just leave the message, and she'll say, don't tell me if you're coming or not. I'll just assume you are. I'm going to be there. And so it sort of creates this urgency for her to show up because her friend will be there. But even if her friend cannot make it, she's already there at noon getting her writing done and in a space that is outside her, normal living space. And it gets her to think differently. And I think that's fantastic. So you have two things to do. You've got to start thinking about where are those spaces. And then if you have a local writing friend, make that appointment and say, I'll meet you there. Let's do this. And you show up, whether they do or not. If they do, extra bonus. You're not writing alone. If they don't, you're there anyway. You catch up with them next time. You tell them how great it was and all the awesomeness that was able to be created in that space. Well, and that's pretty much it for me for this week, because I'm going to get back to my new location because I'm on my final day here before we hit the road again. And hopefully I will be having another writing prompt party from the road. Maybe at a stop, maybe driving again. I'm looking forward to the experience of writing in a brand new space one more time, and looking forward to the spaces that I can do that in when I get home as well. But I thank you as always for listening, and I look forward to talking to you again next week from my home, sweet home. Have a great week. Happy writing, and I'll talk to you then.